Hi, and welcome to the Web Center's Wednesday webinars. This one on beginning comprehension, and we'll be talking a little about decoding and encoding. I'm Steve Hagel, I'm Executive Director of Linux Centers. I'm here with Steve Tattum, our Reading Director and founder of the Tattum Reading Program. I want to talk a little bit about next week's seminar. We're going to be working on how the Tattum Reading Program complements any reading program in the country. We'll discuss a little bit how to fit this kind of approach into whatever type of reading program you might be using in your classroom, or if you're using it as a standalone, or if you're trying to mix it into the work you're doing with other kinds of programs. So we look forward to having that chat next week, and we'll put the registration for that into the recording of this webinar. So I also want to let you know that we're going to be starting up our reading workshop, which is how to teach all types of learners and ages of to learn how to read. This is about a 30-hour program. It takes place over 3 weeks. It has live Zoom sessions with Steve Tattum, practice sessions, and a support group to go with it. Registration is required for this. This is the workshop that we ran in May, and we'll be putting out links to that and to be able to register over the next week or so. So for this meeting, thank you for being patient. As if you've been on the call from the beginning, we do sometimes have things we need to work through. We have a broad range of participants, and as we get going, I'll turn the chat off, and you'll be able to ask questions through me as I'll be the host. We'll have time for question and answers, and we will be recording this and sending out the link to you. So there's a couple different ways to support LearnUp. You can recommend families. We are doing free assessments remotely now. We are also interested in hearing from you if you have students that need some support. We're working with a volunteer tutor corps to hopefully connect them to students who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford tutoring through LearnUp Centers. If you're interested in becoming a tutor, we are hiring currently and looking for tutors. And now that geography is not a barrier, it doesn't really matter where you are in the world. We'll try to figure out how to work with you. Spread the word. One of our goals here is actually to teach kids to read, and we want folks to learn how to do this in a way that's super efficient and that lowers the barriers to entry to moving up the grade levels. We are a nonprofit, and we use philanthropy and donations to help work with families and communities that otherwise couldn't afford our services. So if you'd like to donate and help that cause, that'd be awesome. You can reach us at learnupcenters.org. And Steve, I think you're good to go from here.
Okay. All right, just one sec. All right. Cool.
And just in the chat, it's very interesting. A lot of folks are here for comprehension, but they're game for whatever you got to show them. Whatever you're willing to throw them, I think they're willing to do. So have fun.
I'm good on my feet, so I can do whatever. Great. Okay, so I have control here. Okay, well, my name's Steve Tattum, and for those who are new to this, just a couple-minute overview. I started in the field of reading in the 70s with Slingerland, which is a form of orton-gillingham. In the mid-70s, I became an expert in alphabetic phonics, which is another orton-gillingham program. I went down to Dallas, Texas, took a beginning and advanced course, and was an instructor in alphabetic phonics for over 20 years. I also helped schools with Wilson and Project Read. Wilson was in Hawaii and Project Read was in New Orleans, and I helped support it. Once you know one Orton program well, you can kind of easily slide into others. Orton gets about 2 years growth in 2 years. That was a little slow for me, and I tried to pick up the pace. I then went and did what the Lindemood Bell program called LIPS, which they do not do. Since Patricia Lindemood died, they're not doing that as a main focus of the program, at least up in San Francisco. They've moved into something else called Seeing Stars. LIPS, I found, was very complementary for my field of dyslexia. It produced significant changes. And when we're merged with orton-gillingham, it's highly effective. So in 1989, I merged the insights of processing from the LIPS program and Liberman, who did research on phonological skills. I merged that with the Orton basic sequence and took 2 years to grow, 2 years to get 2 years growth. And I got it in about 6 months to 8 months, 2 years growth. It still wasn't fast enough for me. So I realized that one of the main problems is there weren't books written for older kids. So in 1998 or 97, I started writing my first book called The Rocks, because I did a look over the United States and there was nothing for older kids that was systematically phonetic. So I started writing my own series, The Rocks, and basically in the next couple years, I wrote like 5 series: a high school series, a junior high, a elementary, and a first grade series. But then I kept getting more and more suggestions. I've now written with my son. We put together a couple series. I've myself done 8 series, and I've done a novel that for older kids that reviews higher level phonics. It's called Pep Baker. So we have books for all age levels. Now that means if I have an 8th grader reading at short vowels and consonants, I can put him in a socially, emotionally correct book for him. Moonlight Tales, which is a mystery series. Sunlight Tales, which girls particularly like, which is dealing with adolescent issues. Or historical fiction, Chronicles of Yore. Once I did that, we went from 2 years growth in 2 years to 2 years growth in 6 to 8 months to 2 years growth in 2 to 3 months. That's pretty much what we're averaging now. And the reason is it's real point blank. When you're teaching the phonics, what happens in many phonics programs is that they will teach how to use a dictionary, how to name the letters, the sounds of the letters. They'll then do spelling of letters. They'll do new concept. They'll do handwriting. They'll do spelling of words and reading of words, but they never get to reading the book. Or if they get to reading the book, it's 5 minutes. In my program, reading is half the period. That means half hour through the period, you set a timer and you stop whatever you're doing and you go into the books. Reading, my program's all about reading. It's not a phonics program, it's a reading program. Now we have an intense phonics program, but I keep my objectives set. I'm here to teach reading. Phonics is the doorway to it. And there's 3 approaches. Phonics is the doorway to beginning reading. The next step is directed reading once you know phonics, where you start learning about comprehension skills, text, inferencing, mains ideas, and you learn about different elements of fiction. That's the 2nd level. The 3rd level is whole language. Whole language is not the enemy. Whole language is where we want to get to in our reading once we have the phonetic code down and have transferred that code to directed reading, then whole language. Nancy Atwell's In the Middle and Linda Reef's Seeking Diversity are wonderful books to use as a guiding post for students who have the code down, who understand the text and reading and are ready now for independent reading. I've taught all 3 approaches: systematic phonics, directed reading, and whole language. So I understand the gifts of each. And the problem that has happened is we flip the triangle and some people do whole language first, which is a disaster for, in high socioeconomic circles, 30 to 40% of kids. And low socioeconomic, it's a disaster for 60 to 70% of the kids, okay? All right, so that's kind of an overview. So my program actually started in 1998 and was initially called Fast Reading, now Tattum Reading. That was just because of a legal position. But I changed the program constantly based on research. My latest change has been adding orthographic mapping and what else? I don't know what the way I do repeated. Oh, echo reading. I've added echo reading as a larger player because of the internet recently. Again, because We're not a big company that's spending $1 million on books and manuals. I'll change things as soon as the research points to a change. I change it. I've made 8 editions in my teacher lessons book, and I will, if the research is pointing to another thing that I find effective, I will make that change immediately. So we're very responsive to the research. Okay. Now let's look at phonics in general. I'm not going to talk about my program per se, because we don't have the time and we have a workshop, but I'm going to just talk about phonics in general and what you're trying to do and its application in reading and comprehension. So generally in phonics, you have what are called 6 syllables. So you have 44 sounds, but you have lots of different pictures of the sounds. There's only 15 vowel sounds. All right, so let me go to my board to show you what I mean by that. Okay, so here's a phonetic board. This has the most frequent sounds. What I've done is organize them in a pattern to help kids remember them. So I call this the vowel galaxy. A big dipper like in the sky, a crescent moon, and the earth. The green grass on top of the earth, the yellow and red iron ore below. My advanced kids can recite this from memory. In other words, they can look away and go I, A, O, U, Al, Oi, I, E, A, U, O, They can do that from memory. So they basically have this little package using a mnemonic device. My books correlate to these. Once you've taught the consonants and short vowels, the first book in all my series above kindergarten begin this way. Then when you teach 2-syllable words with consonants and short vowels, that's usually the 2nd or 3rd book of the series. Then when you teach long vowels, that's the next book. Then when you teach our family, that's a book. Diphthongs is a book. Walkers, I call these walkers, 2 vowels go walking, first does the talking. These are a book, then yellows and reds, and then you're through the program. Each book raises grade level. So that's the premise of my program. There's only 15 vowel sounds. Let me say them. I, A, O, U, Ow, Oi, I, E, A, U, O. That's it. And if all we taught were these 15 vowel sounds, this would be a transparent language. But it's not. It's opaque because we have many different pictures of the sounds. I only take the highest frequency pictures and teach them because I use phonics with context. For A, you have an A, but you can also have an AI and AY. There's only 3 words with A here, so I don't even teach it. I teach the 3 words, great steak break. You have some A's here and A's here, so there's a lot of different pictures for A. That's why English is difficult. It's opaque. So what I've tried to do is take the most frequent sounds and teach them and correlate them to books. And again, what happens is by sounding out a word correctly, this is the context of a word that might fit in a sentence. There may be thousands of words that could fit in context. By sounding out correctly, you reduce the amount of words possible to only a couple. So when the child is using phonics with the context, there's only a couple words that would possibly fit. Okay. But I do not use the 3Q method of context, syntax, and phonology. I find that system, which is used by whole languages, ineffective unless the child knows the entire code. Okay, so this is how we deliver it in our system with books. Okay, let me show you what I mean by the books, and then we're going to move on. Okay, so this coming up is I use for junior high kids. You can't see it yet. Okay. It's called Ghost Ship. This is the second book I use with upper elementary, junior high, even some high school kids. This is for kids who have learned short vowels and consonants and are now learning two-syllable words. So remember, half the period in my system is reading. So they will apply their blending to words coming up in the book. These are closed syllables. Then they'll add suffixes. And then I teach what's called the vowel tag. The vowel tags the consonant after it. A tags the S, baskets, and makes closed syllables. A tags the V, travel, river. In Orton terms, that's called VCV or VCCV words. But I call it the vowel tag, river. So we'll work on the words and then phrases, and then we will go into the reading and read. Okay. Now, in our most basic comprehension, since some of you are here for that, when I move into this in my phonics program, I introduce what's called P cubed, P to the power of 3, which is picture, paraphrase, and prediction. Okay. Now, those who have been through my phonics program know that across from concept 1, I teach your paraphrase and prediction to start with. So the child will read and I have them swing with their finger, a pencil, or a business card below. This is to help their pace and to not lose their place, and to get them, when they don't know a word, to swing into it using the vowel tag. So if they didn't know travel, it was nighttime in New Orleans, ship would travel, they would just swing in and vowel tag it down the river. So I have them use their finger, business card, or pen. Now, if I'm doing the internet, they use the cursor. And initially, I will control the screen and I'll move the cursor to teach them how to do it. So let's take this child who is in this book, and notice that there's pretty cool pictures that go with the books. My sister did the illustrations, I'd write the books, then send it to her and she'd do the illustrations. But this looks more like a 5th, 6th grade book. So it doesn't look like a 1st grade book. Now we're dealing with the same thing 1st graders would deal with, but we're dealing with more print and something more appropriate for the kids. And they like it. They feel like they're reading a chapter book and they're off and running. Okay. So let's say we've done the words together. When I do the words, by the way, I alternate. The child will do a word, baskets, and then I'll do a word and model, and then they have to blend it. So I'll go travel, and the child will go travel. Then the child will go river, and then I'll go comments, and the child will go comments. If we're up here, I'll sound it out. Cloth, and the child will go cloth. Then they'll go things, and then I'll go dock, and the child will go dock. I model, I make them blend. Let's say we did that, and we're now at this chapter. It was nighttime in New Orleans. Now, if I'm at a beginning level of comprehension, I want to work with paraphrase in a very basic level. Who or what did what? Those are my questions. It was nighttime in New Orleans. All right, what are we dealing with, Tom? It. All right. It. What's it? What are we really talking about here? Was. Well, I know I'm in trouble. And I've had children do this, by the way. You know, they just pull out words. Okay. So what I got to get across is, all right, let's deal with what we're talking about. Okay. Are we dealing with daytime or nighttime? I will give questions. Choice. Oh, we're dealing with nighttime. Okay, that's what we're dealing with. And where is this at? What's happening? Well, it's in New Orleans. Yeah, this really isn't too much of a sentence. It's just basically saying that we're dealing with nighttime in the city, New Orleans. All right, let's go to the next one. Ships would travel down the river with boxes full of cloth, bottles of rum, baskets of apples, and other things. Okay, who or what are we talking about? Ships, good. And what would they do? Well, they had stuff. Okay, that's good. Yeah, ships had stuff. Can you give me an example? Well, they had cloth and bottles. Now the kid's getting it. Good. We have the who or what did something. The ships would dock, get rid of their stuff, then travel back up the river. What are we dealing with? Ships. And what would they do? They dock and unload their stuff. Great. He's getting a sense of doing it. Good. Then I want to point out this. It was common to see many ships on the river. So when an old ship with a big mast went up the river, people glanced at it but did not watch it. Now, as part of the paraphrase, I want to check pronouns. This is a big issue. There was this one child who thought she was this dog. In this whole story, anytime it was she thought it was a dog, well, it was the woman. So what we want to do is make sure they know what the pronoun refers to. So when an old ship with a big mast went up the river, people glanced at it but did not watch it. What's it referring to? People. Well, people aren't its. People are like they. What it or thing is it talking about? What are they glancing at? Oh, an old ship. But did not watch it. What's this it referring to? People. Well, it's a thing. What thing would you, oh, ship. So as part of the opening of comprehension with kids, I want to make sure that they can give me the who or what did what. Then what do the pronouns refer to? Then what do the few transition words do? The key ones are and, but. I have them listed, I'll show you. But like, but did not watch it. What does but mean? But means the idea is going to change. Okay, so you got a ship coming down and you'd think everyone would watch it, but tells you that the idea is going to change. Okay. So that is kind of how I start with a kid. Now, keep in mind, Kilpatrick and his incredible book in 2008 on assessing and teaching reading. I forget the exact name of the book. But one of the things he talks about is for older kids who can't read, you have to do three things. You must have a good phonics program, authentic books, and advanced phonemic awareness. Good phonics, authentic books, advanced phonemic awareness. Advanced phonemic awareness is where you can have a child make the word thick, now change it into tick, now change it into stick, now stuck, now stup, now stap, now stip. That's called where they have to change sounds in various parts of the words. My program does that. So to teach him to read, you use those three components. For comprehension, he has this simple approach to comprehension, which is this. If you read to a child at their grade level, and they can answer questions and get like 90 to 100%, they don't have a comprehension problem, and you don't have to worry about comprehension. That's the simple approach to comprehension. In other words, when you read something at grade level, can they understand it and answer questions? And if they can, they're fine. That's not the issue. That's the simple approach. Okay. I have found in my experience of 40 years working with kids with phonics, most of the older kids that come to me with phonics problems, their comprehension is at grade level or above, because either parents have read to them or they've just been listening to kids around the block, but whatever. Their oral language may be at 6th grade, but they're reading at 1st grade. So I don't have to do a lot of comprehension with them. I'm primarily doing the decoding and reading, which I'll talk a little bit about. So that makes it real goal. I don't have to stop and say, okay, well, what do you infer from this? What do you predict will happen here? What's it mean? You know, this is at 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. Their oral language is at 6th grade. I could read Hatchet to them and they would understand it exactly. So I don't have to do much in that element. But there are kids that do have the comprehension issues, and those are the ones we want to deal with. Okay. So let's go a step further with the kid who's having trouble with comprehension. So we started by making sure they knew what the who or what and the did what. They could do that. They could trace the pronoun and tell what transition words do. You have certain words that are go words like and, for, because. You have words that change or caution words where the idea changes, like but and however, or although. And then you have stop words that summarize, like as a result or in consequence. Most of the stories early on will have words like and where the idea continues and but where the idea changes. So I want to just make sure they know what those mean. Okay, so that's my starting point, is getting that. Now I use sign language when I introduce these. This is from Kathy Block's work in Florida. She's the superstar in comprehension. So when I'm talking about paraphrase, I show this sign. It's like make it a snowball. We get all the snow, and so when I say give me a paraphrase of what you read, what I want a child to do is give me the who or what did something. Okay, well, we got a ship and it's loaded with stuff going down the river. Great. Prediction, here's the present. Here's what I see. I'm seeing ahead of the present. Paraphrase, prediction. So when I mention these, I just do the sign. Kathy Block found on test, the kids who learned signs used the techniques they taught 50% more than those who didn't. I think that's important. So I'll say, all right, predict. What do you predict is going to happen? Well, since this is called Ghost Ship, I think that there's something strange on this boat and it might attack the men. Good. That's a good prediction. So we start here. Now, the next thing I teach is picturing and connecting. Those who are, again, in my phonics program know that I start introducing that, I think, around concept 8. So picture, we make two bubbles. We put it above the head, because when you picture, you tend to look up to the right, and we show picture. Okay, picture. Okay, and connect. Picture and stay connected. Now, those two go hand in hand. You can't picture something that you haven't seen. Okay, all right, I want you to picture an old-fashioned ship like they had in the 1700s. Well, I've never seen a boat. Well, picture something that floats. Okay, I got something. What is it? It's a leaf. You know, you can't picture something you've never seen. So you basically, in order to picture, you have to connect to your background. If you don't have the background, you have to actually go to the internet and show them a picture, or go to the book and show them a picture so they have something to connect to. So picturing isn't by itself. It's based on your background. So in this story, that's why I have a lot of pictures in my books, because if they don't know what an old-fashioned ship looks like, we can go look at it at this page and say, well, that's what the ship has. It has a mast in the middle of this big pole. It has sails. It's got the front. It's got a bow and a stern. And we can talk about here's a pier or a dock. We can talk about it from the picture. Okay. So we now have 4 skills. We have the idea of paraphrasing to start, prediction. We have picture and connect. Now, you package these, you have what I call basic comprehension. The package is this. The package is that when you read, you should be formulating a picture and then be able to paraphrase and predict from that. You should be formulating a picture, then you should be able to paraphrase and predict from it. So what that means is later on, I put together what's called P cubed, and we'll read. Men were on the deck of the ship stacking cans and lifting boxes when the strange ship slipped into the dock. Okay. Initially, I'll say, let's help your picture. Look over here. Look at this sentence. Men on the deck were stacking their cans. See them doing? They're stacking stuff. Lifting boxes. There, see, you got lifting boxes? When the strange ship appeared. See that? Close your eyes and picture that. You got a picture? Show me where the dock is with your left hand. Show me where the cans or the boxes are. Show me where the ship is. Show me where the cans are. Show me where the box, show me where the dock is. Show me where the people are. Where's the ship? Where's the water? Open your eyes and take a look. Let's put a color on that ship. Let's cut brown wood, good. How about the sails, white? Close your eyes, picture that. Tell me what you see. I see a brown ship with white sails on bluish gray water approaching a dock. The dock's kind of a brown, great. I see men on the dock, great. What are the men wearing? What's their pants? It doesn't tell you, I don't care. Put something on them. What do you think? Jeans, okay. They have blue jeans, that's fine. So you can help them. I recommend before you even start with comprehension problems, you'll start at the cover and do your picturing with the cover. So what is your guideline for picture? It's the S's. Tell me what you see. I see a ship. Good. Tell me more about it. Well, it's black and dark. Why is that? I don't know. It's black and dark. What else do you see? I see a man. What's he look like? I don't know. He's got a big, giant kind of sword thing, like a scythe or something. Okay. What else? He's got a gray shirt. Good. What else do you see? A dark blue sky. Great. What sounds do you hear? That's the second S. Well, the water's pretty still, but I do slightly hear the ship going through the water. What other sounds? Well, it's kind of cloudy. Maybe there's a little thunder. Okay. What else? Well, the creaking of the ship. Good. What do you smell? Smell salt water. What else? Fresh air. Good. What else? Maybe a little mist from the clouds. Good. Okay. Tell me what your sense of touch is. Well, you got this guy on a wood, so I think he feels wood. Hopefully he has shoes on or he might get splinters. People in there will get maybe a touch of the salt water touching their skin. And you might taste a little salty. So you just go through the S's. Good. Now close your eyes. I'll show this. Now close your eyes and picture that. Tell me about it. Okay, there's a ship. Show me with your right hand the ship. There's a guy with a gray suit with like a big sight. Show me that. The sky has clouds. Show me that. There's water's bluish. Show me that. Where's the ship? Where's the man? What color's the man? Gray. Good. So we can warm up when we're pictured on the picture that's going on in the ship, on the cover, but we can also warm up with other pictures related, just getting them to do a couple of the sensing questions before they get into the story. Okay. So once we're in the story, this is again for a child who has comprehension issues. This is not the normal child I'm running into who fits what Kilpatrick talks about. He has systematic phonics problems, but fits the simple definition of comprehension that if I read to him, he can understand at his grade level. So with them, we're primarily focusing on the decoding. All right, so let's go to the next sentence if I was doing P cubed. It stopped next to the dock, but no one jumped off the ship to help tie it up. All right, I want you to picture that. What do you see? I see the ship coming in. Well, show me with your right hand. Comes in. Where does it go? To the dock. Show me where the dock is. All right, tell me about the ship. What's happening? What do you see there? A blank. Okay, you have a ship tied to the dock and blank. Okay. All right. Paraphrase. Okay, well, the ship comes in the dock and there's no one in there and it just ties up. Predict. So paraphrase, I should predict. Well, it's a ghost ship. That's the title of the story. So since no one's jumping off, I'm imagining that it's run by ghost. Okay, that's a good prediction, and it's based on a fact. Great, let's go to the next. What's the problem, yelled Big Bob. Get your men on dock to tie up the ship. There was no response. This was strange. Okay, let's picture that. What do you see? Well, I see this Bob saying, hey, come on, you guys, get on the ship. What's going on? What's the matter? So I picture these people standing around looking at Bob. I picture Bob yelling, maybe getting impatient. I see him getting nervous. I see the people nervous. No one's moving for the ship. All right, paraphrase. Bob wants him to get on the ship. No one's moving. Predict. Well, number one, I predict they do get on the ship, but they're scared. I infer, now I haven't shown this sign yet. This is what the author says, and this is what I bring into it, is inference. Author says, I bring into it. Drawing conclusions is an inference. This is what the author says. I draw conclusions across paragraphs that this is the result. So an inference is inferring across a sentence. Drawing conclusions is inferring across paragraphs. They're both inference. So inference is shown with author, and then I infer. Drawing conclusions is author, and I draw this conclusion. So author, infer, author, draw conclusions. So you can move into that. Now we're moving to advanced comprehension. Don't have to go there. So now, if I have a comprehension kid, there is times I will have him read, and then I will listen, and then I will do the thinking. So he reads, and I will go, okay, I'm going to picture first. Here's what I'm picturing. I picture the ship. It's brown. It's going through the water. The water's blue. I see it coming up the dock. I see it somehow tied up on the dock. People didn't notice how it got tied up. No one's out in the dock. I see people staring at it, kind of scared. Good. They're shaking, and the dock, I see a whole group of men together. Paraphrase. Ship comes in the dock and everyone's freaking out. They don't want to go on. Prediction. People are going to get on the ship and they're going to get attacked. That's what I think. Then I can read to the child and have them give me the picture, paraphrase, and prediction. Okay?
Steve, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Steve, can I ask a question?
Sure.
With children with dyslexia, you often talk about how the fusiform gyrus isn't firing.
Right.
Kids with hyperlexia, I remember several years ago, I actually watched a YouTube video of Nancy Bell giving a presentation in front of a whole group of speech pathologists. And she talked about the fact that with a lot of kids with hyperlexia has a part of the brain that governs concept imagery that's not developed. But she didn't reference which part that was. Would you happen to know?
Yeah. Well, with dyslexia, it's the left fusiform gyrus. We believe with the picturing, all picturing has to come back to the occipital lobe, the calcarine cortex, calcarine fissure back here in the occipital lobe, and that the general picturing of things is occurring in the occipital lobe. And you're also pulling in, when you're looking at a picture, you're pulling in associations with the actions, feelings, etc., which is the right hemisphere. Okay, so you're basically picturing back here, and you're also dealing with the emotional component, which is lacking, which is inside the left hemisphere, inside deep, called the limbic system. The limbic system deals with the emotionality. So what's happening with kids who have the inability to comprehend visually from pictures, they're having trouble formulating the picture from the visual cortex and connecting to the right hemisphere, and also connecting to the limbic system that deals with the emotions involved. So a hyperlexic child often is really cooking in Broca's area, which is sounding out, Wernicke's area, which is knowing what word you sound out. And they stimulate the word form area here, so they can read anything. They ace my reading survey, and they can read anything. The problem is, they're the kid that when you read here, The two men pulled the ship to the dock and hopped onto the deck. So tell me, what are we dealing with? Pulled. Pulled? Who or what? What two? I mean, I actually had kids do this. Two? The. I've had a child answer the question with the. So what we're trying to do with them is to stimulate getting the occipital lobe to try to make pictures and identify the pictures as best they can and connect to the right hemisphere and the emotions involved. But that's not an easy task. Now, Linda Mood Bell has a program called Visualizing Verbalizing that specializes in that. It's a good program, I took it. It takes forever and it costs a lot. So you'll be paying between 100 and 100 and a quarter. You'll do it 4 hours a day for maybe 200 hours. And it can effectively help a child picture that has difficulty picturing. But it's a major investment, major investment. In my case, here, what I'm recommending is a step ahead of that, where we are teaching picturing and moving it immediately into text. And we're using paraphrasing to help support it, because many of these kids, once they get the idea of the who or what, can paraphrase better than they can picture. But if the child totally shows a lack of picturing and their comprehension is not moving, you might consider visualizing, verbalizing. It is a major commitment, major commitment. And it takes a long time and a lot of money, but it's a good program. I tend to work more, mine is more directly related to whatever text you're in. I'll use picturing related to that text. I'll use pictures. I'll first do the picturing before we do it, then I teach the picturing while we do it. So I kind of jump ahead in that component. But anyway, you do have some kids who have a total lack of ability to picture. Now, I don't know how you guys read, but I'm not a great picturer. Never have been. That's why I like nonfiction. And I read a lot of nonfiction where picturing isn't the action. The action is making connections with abstractions. Now, it's interesting enough, I'm doing, as I'm getting older, much more Audible books. And I'm picturing much better on Audible because I'll listen and then I'll actually make myself form pictures. But I'm not a natural picturer. Some people are really good at that, some aren't. Okay? So my P-Cube tries to honor the role of picturing with paraphrasing, but allows the fact that if the child is a little weak in picturing, if their paraphrase is good in prediction, and if they can infer, we just keep moving. But if a child is just deadlined on the picturing, well, first we'll add a second point. If a child's having trouble retaining what they picture and not picturing well, once they read a paragraph, we'll take a yellow sticky, we will draw a little cartoon of whatever they're trying, like a little cartoon of a ship with men on it, stick men, takes a minute, and put docked, and put that on the paragraph. So they have a little sticky with a cartoon. Then we go to the next paragraph, we do a little picturing, we draw a little stick figure of that with a keyword, and put that on the paragraph. Then we'll stop and say, summarize what you've read, and they'll look at the stickies and summarize. And we'll put these stickies on each paragraph as they're reading. And then when we're done with the chapter, I will then have them summarize using the stickies, and then we will write our summary from the stickies. And then I'll organize the stickies as, okay, well, let's organize the stickies into an introduction. So we'll lay out the stickies as an introduction. Now show me the rising action, and we'll put the rising action. Show me the climax of the story. We'll show a climax. Show me the conclusion. I'm setting up what some people call the roller coaster. I call the wave, where all stories follow introduction, rising action, climax, conclusion. Introduction, rising action, climax, conclusion. So you have the stickies. Yeah, this is kind of the introduction, these two stickies. This was the rising action. Then I'll say in the middle, like, what was the climax? Okay. We might put a sticky in the middle for the, or no, we put the sticky at the top of the hill for the climax. But we'll talk about what the climax is, then conclusion. Then we organize the stickies into a pile and stick it in a folder for chapter 1. So no folder, put the stickies in order, in there for chapter 1 that they can review. And we go to chapter 2. We read, we picture, we put a sticky. Read, picture. Again, this is again for the comprehension problem kid, not our normal phonics kid who understands at grade level. I'm not doing any of that. Okay. But the kid who's having trouble, see, you have some kids who can understand the passage but don't remember it. The sticky technique helps. So we put the stickies. Then when we're done, we'll organize the stickies. Well, we'll write a little summary from the stickies. Then we'll organize them. What's the intro stickies, rising action, climax, conclusion. And what I'm setting up is removing the stickies, setting up the introduction, rising action, conclusion, so that when we read, we can put a word or 2 or 3 down for each of those components. So a child can recite the story using introduction, rising action, climax, conclusion. It becomes a memory device for people. Okay? Is this making sense? Somebody respond. Max, does it make sense to you? Good. All right. So let me back up in terms of our basic comprehension program. Again, I operate from the simple view of comprehension, which is if you can orally read to the child on grade level and they understand it, we don't have to worry about it. Now, eventually, when we get the grade level material, we want to teach them about fiction, about the different genres, and then we want to go into whole language where the child will be reading books in various genres and doing reports. But initially, I just push through phonics, and I'll just have a conversation with the child about the book. What do you think so far? Do you like it? What do you think is going to happen next? We'll just talk and enjoy the book. And then in the summary, I'll have them write a good summary. So 2 kids I'm working with now on the Pep Baker book, which is an 8th grade book, they're just writing nice summaries. I require a 4 to 5 sentence summary of the chapter, and that's what they're writing. Okay. But when you have the child with severe comprehension problems, and they're a dual problem, then you're in trouble. A dual problem means they have both phonetics and comprehension issues. Then you kind of got to slow down. And what you're doing is they're reading a sentence, rereading, then I'll take over, I'll read with them, then they'll read. And then I will go back. Who or what are we dealing with? What's happening? Who or what are we? And I might stay at who or what did what for a long time. Okay. Before I move into the picture paraphrase. Okay. So here's where we're at. The child now can somewhat picture, somewhat paraphrase, predict. So I add QOR, question, answer, response. And what that is now is after a page or 2, I will ask one of 3 questions. Is it a their question? A their question, you can put your finger on. So I might say, all right, looking at this page, where was Big Bob and the men? Well, they're going to hold up their finger and they're going to put it on the word dock. They're on the dock. Good. What did Big Bob want them to do with the ship? They're going to put their finger up and tie it up because they can see it. Was this normal or abnormal? Strange. Okay. Was it safe on the ship? 2 fingers. That means you got to look and search. It may be at a couple places. At first, it seemed to be safe. They went on the ship and nothing happened. But then later on, a log fell down. So initially, it looked like it was safe for the first part, but then later on, it wasn't. How was the weather? Look and search, 2 fingers. Well, initially, it was nice and sunny, and then a storm occurred. It's in 2 places. What do you think will happen next? All 5 fingers on top of the head, because it's on your own. I think that the men are going to run off the ship and the ship's going to sail away and the men are freaking out. That's what I think. I think the men are just scared and they're going to get off the ship. Okay. Why do you think they're scared? Well, because they don't understand it. It's not like somebody out coming on them with a gun or that. This weird stuff's happening and they can't see anybody. Is everyone that way? Bob's not. They put the finger on Bob. Okay, Bob's not scared. Good. That's it. Does Bob get scared? No. Bob walks on, a log falls, he keeps going. Bob goes in there even though there's a loud noise. So Bob doesn't get scared. It's in two places. Why do you think that is? I don't know. Doesn't say. All right, so I want you to get creative. How does a guy like Bob not get scared? Well, it could have been the way he was raised. He maybe had a dad who was maybe a soldier or something, taught him how not to be afraid. Good thinking. What else could happen? Well, he might have had incidences early in life where he was in scary things. Good, that's great. Okay, so let's summarize the basic package. This is basic comprehension. We start with the who or what did something. We check pronouns, and then the transition words. Which words go words like and, or for, or because, the idea continues. Which are caution words like but, or however, where it changes. Which ones are stop words where it's a summary, as a result, consequently. Can they do that? Then how's the picturing and connecting their background? If they don't have the background, you have to show, how's that coming? Good. We now have PQ'd. Picture, paraphrase, predict. Notice that connection is closely related to picturing. If you haven't seen it, you can't picture it. So you have to use the internet and show them. Or my books have a lot of pictures in for that purpose, to get them to connect. Look at the picture. Let's describe it. Okay. So I can use my pictures a lot before they read to get the child to describe this picture before they're even reading. Now, again, this would be with the comprehension problem. With the phonics kids, I just want the picture to reinforce what they're reading. Okay. Once we've got the PQ, we now can do the three types of questions. There, look and search on your own. Now, the child who's understanding the passage but not remembering it, I can do the sticky technique with a quick stick drawing and a keyword, which I put on the passage. We don't want a long time to drawing. I'll have the child take over at some point, but we only want a minute for this. And this is to help memory. And it also is going to help their written response at the end. And then when I organize the stickies into the elements of fiction, introduction, rising action, climax, conclusion, which I have to show them ahead of time first. Most stories follow this. Introduction, that's your who, where, when, rising action, climax. I then will shift to that wave, I call it the wave, and then put words or phrases around that to help their memory and comprehension of the story. Just as a thought, we do know that written summaries are a great way to teach comprehension. Also, in written responses, before I have kids write their written response to my stories, I have them brainstorm 5 or 6 words. Studies indicate writing improves if you brainstorm words before you write. Okay. Now something else, I'm out of time, but something else I was going to talk about, I think I'll close with. In all phonics programs are really based on 6 syllables. And this is why people do phonics. Okay. So any phonics program, it comes down to they're dealing with the same 6 syllables. Now there's 1,000,000 words, but all 1,000,000 words can only be broken up into these 6 syllables. A closed syllable is where you have a vowel closed in by a consonant after it, like the word at, cat, it, sit. It's where the vowel is closed in after it by a consonant. An open syllable where it's not closed in, it's open up, like the syllables re, or here we have like fay, like in fable, tie, like tidy, few, like feudal, see, like select, row, like robot, those are open. You have vowel teams, and there's I have them broken up into colors. But when I'm dealing with the 6 syllables, I've made it a little easier. You have diphthongs, where you have 2 vowels that take an unexpected sound. You have first walkers that actually fit 2 vowels go walk and the first does talking. And then you have last walkers where the last does talking. So this is a simplified system I've made for people who are not in my phonics program. Then you have endings and prefixes like re, shun. In recondition, knock off the prefix, re, knock off the ending shun. Now you've got the word recondition. Undisciplined, knock off the prefix. Undisciplined. So we are teaching children to knock off the prefixes and endings when they read. Then we have our family, which is like our, or, okay? And then silent E. These are the 6 syllables. And the 6 syllables hit all million words. Now, there are things that don't play fair, but that's why for reading, if you are teaching the child to use your proper phonics with context after they sounded the word out, you've narrowed down the possibility of words that fit, and many of the words that don't play fair won't even be included. Okay. So these 6 syllables are what all phonics programs deliver. The difference is the pace. We are the fastest program that I know of, inasmuch as in 2 to 3 months, we get 2 to 3 years growth. Half our period's reading. Reading's so important for me, I've got like 10 series that we've created. I think it's more than that. We have like 12. Can't keep track. We've got a lot of series. I've got series for everybody, for 5-year-olds all the way through 65. That's because I believe reading is the cornerstone of the program. Okay. We also take these 150 sight words, which make up 50% of everything you read, write, and spell. And we will, with the kids, check to see what they don't know. So we might go through the first column and we put a yellow highlighter over the ones they don't know. So this child today that I'm working with who's really severe, he's working with the first 10. So what I'll do is I'll time him for the 10, and then we'll do beat the clock. We'll try to beat our time with that a couple times. Then once he does pretty well, we'll add more, another 4 to 6. Some kids we can give more words, but basically we're checking what they don't know. We time them. When they get good, we then add more. Our goal is to get through these 150. We do this just for a minute a day because we're only dealing with 8 or 10 words usually, or 15, and we're timing them a couple times. And this is to make automatic the 150 most frequent words. Okay. Also in our program, we do, and I'll close with this, we do repeated readings every day. So with the book, when we're done reading our chapter that we're reading, we will take a paragraph and time the child reading it. And it might take him 40 seconds. And then we give him 4 times to beat his time. It's called beat the clock every day. And we're working on fluency. We have the parents every night time for a minute, how many words per minute they get in a minute. And then they have 4 times to beat how many words per minute they do, and they graph it. How many words they started with and how many they ended. And they put the amount of words they did in errors, 60 words, 4 errors, and then they ended up with 80 words with 2 errors. And every night they do that. The reason we're doing these 2 things is we're trying to stimulate the word form area, or fusiform gyrus, which is not working in kids with dyslexia. That's why they have to sound out the same word every time they see it. Yesterday, they see it again, yesterday, and see it again, yesterday. Okay, when the word form area fires, once they see a word, they remember it. Word form area fires in most first graders by the 3rd trimester of the 1st grade. That means when they see a word, after seeing it 1 to 3 times, then they maintain a picture. Not 5 to 10, which we used to think. just a couple times and it stays in their register. That's not happening with kids with dyslexia. My whole program is about stimulating that area. So in summary, we're a program that does systematic phonics with the idea of stimulating the word form area by teaching the full phonics code, getting the child to read at grade level, then move them to directed reading with books and novels, and then the whole language. We help stimulate the word form area with repeated readings and beat the clock. For those children who do have comprehension issues, we'll do P cubed, the sticky technique, and then evolve the sticky technique into the wave or elements of fiction and use that in place of the stickies to help with memory. And we use the core technique. There, look and search and on your own. There, look and search on your own. One other thing, when I'm working with a child with dyslexia, I use the 2-2-2 technique for reading. So when they're reading and they miss a word, I point above it and they sound it out. When they miss it again, I point it out and they sound it out. Then I take over for 2 sentences. The child will read with me and I leave out 2 words, usually words they struggled with. Then I give it back to them. They read, I point, take over for 2 sentences. They read with me, leave out 2 words, and then I give it back. When I take over, I pick their pace up a little. If I'm on the internet, it has a delay, so I can't do it. So I do what's called echo reading. The child will make a mistake, I'll point, then I will take over and say echo. I'll read a sentence correctly, then they'll read it after me. Then I read another sentence correctly and they'll read it after me, then they take over. That's called echo reading. Okay, that's a lot of stuff, but I really had to do 2 things that I wasn't planning on. So now we're opened up for questions. Let me get ready. I need 1 minute break as I get prepared. I just need to get a Coke.
Does anybody have questions that they would like to bring up? It's going to be a short seminar today.
I guess the only thing is there a time limit when the videos are all coming down? Because I'm a little bit behind.
So that's for the course. If you are, the course will come down as the next course starts up. So you have a couple weeks.
Steve?
Yes, sure.
Okay, I just, I'm looking for confirmation on whether like fluency definitely takes precedence over comprehension. Is that true?
So Steve, the question is, does fluency take precedence over comprehension?
Good question.
Do you want me to answer it?
Pardon me? I want to think about that. That's a great question. Does full fluency take precedence over comprehension? All right, so let me think aloud. Comprehension, the simple view of comprehension is that if you can orally read to a child the text at their grade level and they can give you a summary or answer questions, they don't need comprehension work. So therefore, fluency dominates for sure with that child. Now, when you have severe kids with comprehension, many of them read fluently and don't understand a thing. Therefore, comprehension dominates and fluency is no longer an issue. In fact, I purposely slow them down to make them process. So in the child who's hyperlexic, I could care less about fluency. I'm interested in them giving me the who or what did what, and then evolving to P cubed where they can do some sort of picture. You know, there's a car, good. Can you see what kind of car? I don't know. Well, what color? It's silver. Okay, and where is it? In the driveway. What's the driveway will look like? Good. All right, put in your own words. Get something like that, getting to that P cubed going, getting him to understand. At this point, fluency is a non-issue. Now, with the child who's dyslexia, comprehension's a non-issue. Fluency is the whole game. It's all about word attack and fluency with the child who has dyslexia. So to answer that question, I'd have to know what kid you're talking about, what is important. But when I have a child who's hyperlexic or nonverbal learning disordered, who has comprehension, because not all do. Keep in mind, many autistic children are brilliant in reading and can read stuff and understand stuff way above most of us. They just have they have issues in other areas maybe. So it depends on the particular child I'm dealing with. But if I have a child who's hyperlexic or has nonverbal learning disorders, fluency is no longer an issue. I'm all about comprehension. Does that answer it, Sherry?
Well, yes. In a way, I'm working with a second grader, and I never get around to asking her the who or what did what kinds of questions because her fluency is so slow. She reads, it's so labored. But we read words in isolation. I don't know what it is, but when she's reading and we're doing the timed readings and yesterday she did great, today, not so much.
All right, Sherry, well, first, that's normal.
Okay.
Not you nuts, but it's normal. It's kind of like this. I have to come up with a new analogy, but I always put it this way. You put the CD, sometimes they put the wrong CD in and it's just not working. And what I have to do is boot it up. So a child who's having fluency issues and suddenly can't do a thing that day,
Yes.
I move to the echo drill where I read fluently and I have them echo what I'm reading. And I do that to warm them up. And after several sentences of warming up, I give it back to them and they do better.
Okay.
Echo drill. See
what I've been doing.
Pardon me?
I said that's basically what I've been doing.
Good.
I just wasn't sure.
Yeah. No, what it is, pressure release is our bread and butter. But for a child who, for whatever reason, is not kicking in like they're supposed to, I will then take over and read it properly with fluency and have them model it. And what it does, it kind of warms them up. And then I go back to pressure release. And with that child that day, I may be doing echo pressure release where they read, and after their two struggles, I do the echo drill where I read and they reread it, again, to help with that. And then I'll find the next day they read fine.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's really weird. And that's just part of the game. So you don't want to get frustrated. I have to tell myself that. I'll go like, did you sleep last night? What?
I'm really glad to hear that because I'm feeling make it look so easy. It doesn't feel that way right now.
No, it's the reason I make it look easy is I've worked with problem kids forever. So in working with adults, it's just so simple. But when I work with kids, I'm having the same problems as you're having. I'm having a couple now. I'm pulling my hair out on the internet because I'm working with two at the same time. I was working with isolation, but in the summer I'm working with the two. And their attention wanes with two because I can't give them my full. And I'm trying to get writing done. And right now I'm experimenting. The good thing about this is when I experiment, I learn stuff that can help you guys. But I run into all the same problems you guys do. I do. It's just that I get to talk about it and solve it. Because I know when I solve it for everybody. But anyway, yeah, don't worry about it. Do the echo drill to get her going. Once she gets going, go back to pressure release. And just take comfort in the next day or two, things will get better. It's kind of like the stock market now. It dropped 3 days in a row and you go, oh my God, I lost all my money. And then suddenly it's back, you know?
Good analogy.
Yeah, good. All right, any other questions?
Steve, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I have been working with several children remotely through Zoom, and I've run into all kinds of scenarios. Some kids have to do it through their phone, and the Wismo board doesn't work, so I made them a little board. And today, one little girl was up north at her grandma's cottage, and she didn't have any of her materials, but she did have, well, we used a paper and pencil. So if they don't have their board, is that an acceptable, way
Of doing things?
yeah, I mean, I'm just
All right, here's our position.
work around everything.
First, keep in mind, we're running those same problems.
Okay.
And we didn't have this problem for years.
Mhm.
And at my clinic, we didn't have this problem. People did it exactly the way we wanted it, or we'd say, okay, you don't have to work at home. We're just going to have to pay for an extra month of work, you know? So people would do it. So we could do things ideal. We can't do that anymore. We're running into those same problems. So here's the deal. One is, our goal is you can do a pretty perfect lesson by using the Wismo board with Zoom, where the child takes control of your board. You can do a full lesson like it's spelled out to be. I can't do that with a couple of my guys right now for multiple reasons. So that's ideal. But if the child is disorganized and can't function and loses stuff, and when you change anything is totally disorganized and has no idea what's going on. Do you know what kind of kid I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Then I take control of everything initially. So let me give you a 5-minute example. So hold on here while I pull this up. So that child's on their phone and they're looking here, right? Okay. Now, first, I need to say this is not an ideal lesson. This is not the Tattum reading program the way it's supposed to be done. This is the pragmatics of nothing's working and I got to control it. Okay? So I don't want anyone to have to say, well, this is how you do it. This is what I do with, what do I call the ADHD child severe.
Okay.
Okay. I follow my lesson plan, so I start with sounds. Okay. Who's asking this question, by the way?
Oh, Patrice, Patty Palomino.
Patrice?
Yep.
All right, Patrice, you be my kid. All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to say the sound. I want you to echo it, and then I'm going to point to it. Let me hear it. Good. Rrr,
Oh,
rrr,
oh,
rrr, vzz,
oh.
vzz. There you go. Ks, eh.
Eh.
Notice, rather than the child pointing to it, I make them say the sound, but I point to it. The reason I'm not having them doing it, because they're so disorganized, they can't find the board. When they get it up, they lose it, and half your lesson's gone, okay? So I'm having them say the sounds, I'm just pointing to it. Ah,
Ah.
ah,
Ah.
eh,
Eh.
shh. Okay, now I want you to do exactly what I'm doing. Are you ready?
Yes.
D,
D.
g.
Good.
What that was I'm cleaning up the sounds they weren't clean. So I'm cleaning them up. So this is done differently than the way I should be doing it, whereas I say the sound and they move the marker and point to it, okay? So that's a change I make for this child who can't do anything at home, nothing works. Now I can point and they can read, correct, Patrice?
Correct.
So go ahead, be the kid.
G. Qua. Eh. 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 Ah. Ah. Ing.
Ing,
Ing. Est.
or s. Patrice, does that say k or s? It's in front of an I.
Oh, in front of an I. S.
There you go. So I do that with C and G. Okay. Then I do my new concept, which they can do. Now, the syllable work, that's a big problem for this kid
Yeah.
because they can't do anything. So that's the way I showed with start one is what I could do with this child. So I could say, all right, we're going to deal with the word, the nonsense word, PIM. Are you with me, Patrice? Let's say the sounds. Are you ready? What's this?
Eh. Hmm.
All right. Our new word is rim, echo.
Rim.
What are we changing this to?
We're taking out the P
Okay,
and
just putting in a what?
R.
So what I want you to do in the future is just tell me what's going here. What's going to go here?
R.
Keep going.
Eh. Mm.
What's the new word?
Rim.
All right, Ricks, echo.
Ricks. R. Eh. X. X.
Oh no, okay. Not X. X.
X.
There you got it. Ricks. Racks.
R.
What's the word? Racks.
R. Eh.
Okay, I didn't hear the word. My computer has a problem.
Oh,
Racks.
racks. Sorry, racks. R. Eh. X.
What is it?
Racks.
Okay, so notice that the spelling, they're still segmenting. They're still saying the sounds purely. I'm just moving it.
Okay.
Not ideal, not ideal. But what it does and what it saves in time and in disorganization and you pulling your hair out, it can be worth it with that kid. You just need to tell yourself, I am doing an adapted version, a modified version for this child. Tell yourself that regularly so you don't forget what the regular program looks like. Does that make sense?
It
Okay.
does make sense. Now,
Right.
I have one more question I want to ask. So,
Okay.
the students I'm working with, they are students that I had in my class this year,
Okay.
and I'm still getting, I know the reversals, like on will come out no, or of they'll say from, and
Sure.
we'll go back and look at the word and say, what does it start with? What do you see? And what did you tell me? So do I just have to keep chipping away at that, like rereading?
Well, first, keep in mind, even though the letters are in order on the page,
Mm-hmm.
you see often 6 to 8 letters to your right, 6 to 8 letters. You have your letters, you have 4 to the left and around 6 to the right. The letters come back to the calcarine fissure and then move up in the brain, and they're not, when they come into the back of the brain, they're not a B. They're different lines and arcs. See, it helps you to think that way. So those letters that come in are different arcs, letters, and they got to be put back together. That's why they flip around. because the child doesn't know of, and whatever the word, they don't know it automatically. Because if they did, it would go right to that picturing plate. So all that tells you is their word form area is not firing. And what you've got to do is you're going to have to go after those words more frequently, but you got to do the full program to get it to fire. Because keep in mind, when you go fit, make it flit, make it flat, that stimulates the word form area. And then when you do repeated readings and the folks do it, that stimulates the word form area. Once that word form area is stimulated and the word is seen, that won't happen anymore. Until that's stimulated, it will happen.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Thank you very much. And, I want to tell you, you are spot on, or Steve mentioned that parents have to be there to watch Zoom. And that is so true. I always tell parents, stay around just in case we need you.
Exactly. And that should be just a requirement for us to tutor is we're going to need to get you to help get this up and rolling. Because, we're learning too, the adaptations for internet. I think one of the reasons I can answer all these questions is because I've been doing this on the internet. I've made every mistake you're making and still am.
Yeah.
But I look at all my mistakes are great because I'm actually staying ahead of your mistakes so far.
Okay.
Nobody's had a mistake they've made yet I haven't made. So I think I'm doing really good on making lots of mistakes. Like the one where I had to take over for the syllable work, that just came out of me pulling my hair out going, this is taking me forever. Let me try this,
Yeah, thank you. That's going to be helpful.
Yeah, correct.
Steve, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I've got an 8th grader, rising freshman that I'm working with, and she also has an autism 1 diagnosis. And as a result of medications and things that were tried, she was diagnosed with dyslexia in 3rd grade. But because of also with ADHD or some other, medication interfaces, she then ended up experiencing a lot of anxiety and other things for which had to be the primary goal for treatment and intervention. So she finally this winter has been available for actual intervention around her dyslexia. So that's really the focus this summer. Right now the family has only allocated seeing me 1 time a week, and I'm kind of thinking about how to bump that up and how to message that. I had started her in another program that I'm trained in called Wired for Reading, which is a wonderful program, and I still really like a lot of elements of it. But I think for her, it's interesting to look at this program being maybe a better match given her age, and she's really kind of a start too. It's kind of striking. And so I'm also kind of fascinated to use it with her. So I'm wondering how you would encourage me to present this to family, because I've been noodling ideas of seeing her in person once a week and then online or.
Tattum Reading, which is 40 years of experience in this program. We have a clinic called Learn Up, and a Start 2 typically takes 80 hours. Get them to grade level. Typically a Start 2 takes 80 hours. At 80 hours, at an hour a week, we're talking 2 years. Okay. If we did that 3 days a week, we could knock that down to a few months. You just need to lay it out in terms of what that means. Okay. Now with that 8th grade girl, I'd start her at Sunlight Tells at Sock Hop. That's where I'd start her at. Because that series deals with emotional issues and interpersonal issues that kids like that can really utilize. First one is Sock Hop, and then it moves into Raft Trip, where there is a crash and a girl takes over as the lead in a crisis. But it deals with a lot of affective issues. Yet, and if you finish that series and then read the 2 highest books of Moonlight, which is Ocean Woman and Caribbean Crisis, that brings her up to mid-7th grade reading. And that can be done if you work daily. One can get there in 2 months, 2 to 3 months. So, you just need to approach it that way and say, listen, if we were to do the Sunlight and just show her and Moonlight, these 2, if you can get those series, I'd have the parents pay for it if I was you. And by the way, that's just a general rule. You can, if you can't afford a series, just have that as part of your cost and have the parents pick it up.
Right. I was thinking about that as well. And then I might buy them back from them, right? If she gets beyond it, I could buy them back from her.
Yeah, or you know, get them on the internet. They'll be like half the price. The deal is going through that from my experience. Does she have normal intelligence, would you say?
Yeah, she's average.
Yeah. My experience going through that at a start two, in 80 hours, we should be able to have a major breakthrough and get her close, a real around the 6th, 7th grade reading level. Now she's at like the second now. That's a lot in 3 months.
Yeah.
But one day a week, 2 years, 2.5 years. So
right. And she's not going to tolerate that. And with coronavirus, frankly, she can't see anybody else.
Right.
Well, fun.
And just put it, you have a choice. Again, they can email me, by the way, stevetattum@me.com. I'll reinforce that. And I'll just say, you know, it's your call. 2 and 2.5 years or 2.5, 3 months. Your choice.
Right. Right.
Okay.
So one of the things parents, Aline, is that there's a difference between a marathon and a sprint. So if you want to take 2 years, if a kid is in 8th grade and they're going to take 2 years to get to 8th grade level, at that point they're a sophomore in high school.
Right. That's, I mean, all of these things.
And they're missing out on program because they're constantly out getting intervention.
Right.
You know, so you actually speed up the process, and you just have to put your head down and go.
Right. And it's ultimately the same amount of money. It's just stretching it out.
It's actually cheaper than most reading programs because it's faster.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other is by the time you catch them up, you're now 2 years older, so she's behind again.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, now if she's in 8th grade, our goal is to try to get her as close to 8th grade as possible. But if it's over a couple of years, we may get her to 7th and 8th, but now she's a couple of years behind.
Right.
See what I mean?
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. And again, that's the whole purpose of my program. A lot of programs are based on 2 years. It takes 2 years to get through them.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that. I did that.
Right.
I'm never doing that again. I'm all about 2 to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are cases that doesn't work. I get the severest kids at Stern School where I work in the mornings.
Yeah.
And they take longer. But there are kids in our clinic that we knock out in 2 months and they're at grade level and we never have to see them again. That's our goal.
And she's a kid who she's got working memory issues. So she's more complex that way. But if you saw her at the grocery store, you'd be like, totally normal kid.
Yeah.
So she's
memory issue is another reason why you need more than 1 day a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Exactly. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Going once. Going twice. Okay. Next week, we're going to, based on demand, we are going to address how my program can interface with any reading program in the country. The reason he can do so is mine doesn't require bells and whistles. Most phonics programs have a whole series of things you got to do, linkages and all these performances you got to do to get them to correlate. Whereas in my program, you can just catch a kid up where he's at and move ahead. So we're going to talk about how it can interface with any program out there, how it can be the remedial program for any program, or how it could boost any program. So that's what we'll talk about next week. Okay. All right.
Great. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.